What is your name and nationality?
My name is Reuben Brigety, Senior. My nationality is Afro-American, American, Afro-American. Well, that's redundant in saying it twice that way. I was born and raised in Daytona Beach, Florida in 1944. And ironically, I was born right across the street from where Mary McLeod Bethune is buried on Bethune-Cookman campus. In other words, I was born in a house right across from her backyard.
So that must have had a profound influence on you growing
Well,
up. Yeah.
it did in the sense that Miss Bethune took my mother in Bethune-Cookman as a 10th grader to participate in the choir. My mother was soprano, and she couldn't read music, couldn't read notes, but she had a perfect pitch, perfect tone, perfect diction. It was a gift from God, and she became the songbird of Bethune-Cookman. I was born on McLeod Street, and not until the COVID epidemic, a pandemic 2 years ago, and reflecting on my life and all, did I realize that the street that I was born on, McLeod, was named after Mary McLeod Bethune all this time. And,
All of a sudden, it dawned on you. Yeah.
Right.
So, so what is your profession?
I'm a retired physician. I do a little bit consulting work for a different agency with paperwork. I was trained as an obstetrician, gynecologist, and I practiced that for a period until I really had a burnout episode. That's why I stopped that and went into more or less medical consultant work.
I've done that as well. I've gotten into health consulting for my profession as well.
Mm-hmm.
How did you reach the position you are in today in your profession, your educational background, and what is the relative advantage of high work versus high intelligence?
Well, you need intelligence, and it doesn't have to be a perfect 180 IQ. Even with that, you need to have perseverance, determination, and you need to have good habits. Which, I had at Morehouse. I kind of faltered a little bit with those habits in medical school at first. But I think that I've regained them. The older that I've gotten now, I've gone back to more structured, but for fun and enjoyment in learning and expounding on many different things.
Mm-hmm. What advice would you give to those who might want to pursue being a physician and a specialist in OBGYN, and what are the secrets of success?
I would tell anybody, particularly males, and particularly black males, medical school is a demanding experience, and you were lucky enough to enter into medical school and complete medical school and your training, and you really need to focus on giving medicine at least 20 years back of your life, as with the least outside distractions. When I say outside distraction, people will come to you with all kind of business schemes, and your motivation with your caring spirit will be pulling you towards many different activities and to betterment for the betterment of your community. But I think that if you will just give 20 years back to medicine, at least 15, I would advise you, which someone advised me or told me to do. Say if you take 20 minutes every day to read something in medicine, it doesn't have to be in your field. Uh, uh, Find something that you may not even be interested in, but pursue it and read about it and all. You'll be far ahead of your peers. Just spending 20 minutes of your day um, reading some outside medical literature, pamphlet, or something to further your mind.
I kind of think that that's an idea that you can extrapolate to any profession where, take a 20 minutes every day to read something. It doesn't even have to be in the profession you're in.
Right.
And it just opens your mind and it broadens your perspective. So I think that's exceptional advice to people in any career. So what
At this particular time, I kind of sloughed off these last 2 years with COVID, but I became very interested in cancer, and so I go to the cancer conference every Tuesday at one of the local hospitals in Jacksonville, and uh, it can be breast cancer 2 times a month and multidiscipline the other 2 times a month, and it's really been eye opener because the fact that I've seen the new physicians come along, particularly women, who are now very prominent in the field of medicine, and to watch them multitask, watch women multitask has been very it's been a learning experience for me to watch and to be a part of, because my daughter-in-law is an intensivist, and so I guess that she multitasks too.
she's a physician.
Yeah, like a hospitalist, she's an intensivist.
Okay.
But
That's your daughter-in-law.
yeah,
Yeah.
but more or less a specialist in pulmonology.
Okay. I'll ask you a little bit about your son later, but what obstacles did you overcome to reach your professional goals, and were those obstacles internal or external? Give examples.
They were both. It was during the time of 1965, which was right at the peak of what we would call integration in our country, and I chose to go to my state school, the University of Florida, and it had just begun to integrate in the late 50s, and no black had finished the medical school. I think that if you would have asked me 30 years ago, I would probably given you maybe a different answer, but in retrospect and thinking about life over these 50 years, I think that it was a combination of both. The University of Florida, Gainesville, accepting me. It was some of my shortcomings of wanting to be a total part of the university, and with that, maybe my study habits were not the best in the world because I was trying to identify with different groups and become a part. But I enjoyed my clinical years, of course, more than my basic science. I think that most of us do. and
Agreed.
and it was it was very interesting because people did take liking to me. One particular pediatric hematologist, Dr. Howard Pearson. Uh, I did research on him of both during the summer and during the course of the school year. I did research in sickle cell and iron deficiency anemia. Had 2 articles published in the Journal of Pediatrics right after I graduated as the lead author and everything.
Wonderful, wonderful.
But
that's
it was
as a student, that's
yeah,
incredible.
it was
Yeah.
the encouragement of Dr. Pearson and his guidance, and we tested about 300 kids
Right.
For iron deficiency anemia, and wrote up articles,
Mm-hmm.
and also sickle cell.
Mm-hmm.
He was very interested in that.
I had a similar experience not working at Oak Ridge as an undergraduate. I had a preceptor, Ivan Cameron, who we published a paper together on a one-cell organism called Tetrahymena piriformis. And that was
it's big enough.
Yeah, right, and that was published in the Journal of Cell Biology. So it was really great to have mentors, and I think that's something that we can convey to an audience, is that looking and finding mentors is a really important part.
Very important
Yeah.
part. A very important part. I went a different direction. I went more or less into strictly clinical medicine. After I left the University of Florida, I did a straight medical internship at what was Duval County Medical Society. It was the county hospital in Jacksonville, Florida. I was the first black intern and resident
that they had
there, and that was very interesting. I felt very comfortable because of my training at the University of Florida. So I stayed on in Jacksonville. I did one of the first laparoscopic procedures in Jacksonville.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Yeah, so what would you say is the greatest achievement that you have made so far in your profession?
I still hold the record of delivering 26 babies in 24 hours.
Is that right?
At University Hospital in Duval.
Wow.
So, at least I guess I still hold that record.
I bet you those babies have produced children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
You know, so you.
Yeah, well, I was a resident at that time, and so kids that have delivered even in my private practice, they're not even.
Do you have a tally on your total roughly in life?
I kept it at one time. It was between 25 and 30,000. 100 to 30,000 babies.
Wow. You're responsible for a huge population change in the world.
It was a big practice,
Yeah.
solo practice. You don't do OBGYN solo.
Yeah, there's a teamwork involved, right? So, what are your future goals in your career, and have you written these down?
No, you sound like my wife, and all of my friends want me to write my life. I had a friend for Christmas to give me a microphone thing that I could dictate
Sure.
something every day.
Yeah, I hear you.
And she even told me that she would type it.
Yeah. She would type up the transcript.
Yeah. So I think
You should do that.
I think that being around you all here these few days has been a very big boost to me.
Me too.
the conversations that we've had around the campfires, discussing our lives and patterns and everything. And I think that I can only remember the challenge that Dr. Mays gave us on graduation, which he said that you may not remember anything that I say, but like the prophet of Israel, I must have my say.
Yeah.
So you are the most fortunate class to come out of Morehouse in its 98-year history, I think it was.
Yeah, you're absolutely. I was just reading that, so you're
Really?
spot
Okay.
on with the accuracy of your statement.
You're saying that the integration is coming so fast and barriers are breaking down so fast that it makes the timid more timid. But he also preached that even though we didn't have integration, segregation is in the mind,
Right.
that you don't let it be a part of your life, that you can be segregated and still be free. But he made us aware of the fact that we were Morehouse men now, and that Morehouse would never relinquish our obligation to do the best that we can, even when you fail. Do it good, in so many words, that everything's not going to be a success.
In the Mays way of saying it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So, what are your retirement plans and your philosophy of retirement?
I'm rejuvenated just to maybe continue my medical consultant work. I had planned on maybe stopping in June of this year, but I'm going to continue, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing. Second of all, I will become a little bit more involved. We have a predominantly black medical association in Jacksonville, and I had been very interested in that, very involved in that over one time. I'll get back involved with that. The University of Florida's always inviting me back to either speak to students, just to be there and be a part. I'm going to start taking them up on it a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
And
So you don't really plan to retire? That's what I'm gathering here.
not anymore.
Yeah, right. So
I want to be here 10 more years, and we do this again.
yeah. We'll review that question.
Right.
Yeah, right. The number of children and their names that you have.
One one child, a boy.
And his name?
Reuben Brigety II.
Okay. Describe Reuben and the role you played as a parent in his development, including your philosophy of parenting, and was education a special emphasis?
Education was not an emphasis because I remember him saying in 10th grade, we started talking about college. He said, well, I thought I was supposed to go to college. So it was.
There was no doubt about
right.
it, right? Yeah, right. Say.
It was a given. His mother played a very important part in his development, especially during his early development, which was good because she's really a specialist in early childhood education. And her philosophy about kids before the 6 years of age is not with rote memory, but with creative thinking. So she would have school with him every day. I didn't know that when he was 2 or 3 and everything. I found some of the papers that that they had, and it would be 3 plus 3, the line 9, and she was like very good on it. Where had I been there, I would have been a little bit bum 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 from the old way of thinking, and even more so, the threes were turned around like E's. But so it was very interesting that my approach was to more or less accountability. Her approach was unconditional love. Okay.
Okay.
This showed even more when he was working on his PhD at Cambridge over in England, and he hit that wall where people do with PhDs. And we were a little bit concerned, of course, he was over in England here, and so my approach to him was, if you want to do it, do it. My wife's approach was that she was going to get involved in a PhD program. Show him if she could do it, he could do it.
Wow.
And she did get involved in a PhD.
What a wonderful mother.
Yeah, she got involved in a PhD cohort, and the irony is that they both hit the dissertation writing at the same time.
No kidding.
Well, he was a little bit in front of her, but still.
Yeah, right. That's a
And
great story.
I maintain you have not lived until you've had 2 immediate family members working on dissertations at the same time.
So where did your son go to undergraduate?
My son went to the Naval Academy.
Naval Academy, that's
U.S.
right.
Naval
That's
Academy.
Right. Interesting.
He was
So
brigade
that
command-
takes a
brigade
lot of
commander at
takes a
the
lot of
academy.
recommendations. It takes a lot of obviously talent to get into Naval Academy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the only place he applied.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, he's a pretty confident guy, you know. Well, I know where he gets his confidence from. Yeah,
He
right.
took the SAT in his junior year. He did very, very well. I thought he could do better, but got accepted. He was one of the first ones to get accepted the next year for the next coming.
Fantastic.
And it was going to be, the SAT was going to be given again.
Right.
And so I wanted him to take it.
Yeah.
And he told me, if you want 1,400, you take it. I said, I'm already accepted at my school.
Say, I don't need this aggravation
And
anymore.
I started to do it. But I may not make 900. So
Yeah,
I bet not do it.
I forgot more than I ever.
Right,
You know.
yeah, I bet not do this.
So, what are your hobbies?
My hobbies, to my wife dismays a lot, is watching the news program, particularly CNN, History Channel, MSNBC, and CNN, and I turn to Fox to find what they're saying too, and I've become very involved in American history. You know, the founding fathers I love, and I have some of my views on that. And, my favorite is Benjamin Franklin at the Constitutional Convention.
That's my favorite too.
Right. And
the elder
philosopher,
philosopher.
absolutely.
The, Renaissance man.
Right.
He knew everything.
Right.
Yeah.
But a man of with issues just like we all do. His illegitimate son, who was the governor of New Jersey, he was loyalist as opposed to the
Patriots who wanted independence. Yeah, right.
And then after the Revolutionary War, Benjamin Franklin went to England, and he talked to many people who had been against America, gaining this independence. He was able to accommodate them and all, but his son came through, and he refused to see his son.
Wow.
And so
That's pretty strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
his son died. I mean, Benjamin Franklin died without making up to.
Reconciling
Yeah,
with his son.
son.
Yeah. How have your hobbies enriched your life?
It has made me more tolerant towards people.
Mm-hmm.
I see people having done the best that they could,
Mm-hmm.
and
And that's from that history that you have learned, you know,
learn.
characters through history
Right.
that
I mean, gee, Thomas Jefferson and Hamilton.
Yeah,
Boy,
yeah.
those two.
Right. They were serious intellects that borrowed from European philosophy. I think John Locke, you know,
Yeah.
and
But these two guys,
and-
they were brilliant.
yeah,
And they did a brilliant job in helping us to establish
a democracy.
a democracy.
Yeah, right.
But right from the start, one was a Confederate,
Yeah.
and the other one became a Democrat. George Washington didn't think that we needed split
Different parties, right.
People were criticizing him, even though we look at him as the father of the country and all. If you go back and read some of the things that were being said about George Washington, the only problem, they didn't have the internet, so it took time to assimilate.
Right.
But they had to encourage him to run a second term. It was just that
Right,
vicious.
and he definitely made that speech about not going past the second term,
Sure.
which became the standard until Roosevelt.
Right.
Until Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Right. And then it became the 18th Amendment.
Amendment,
Yeah, that restricted.
But
to,
it was after with the second term, he said, "I'm going back to Mount Vernon. Y'all can have this. Is just too.
I'm done.
Yeah, this is,
I'm done.
and I'm saying all that to say that we think that there is acrimonial relationships now.
Right.
But
But
you
they
had
were-
people. It was way back then. Fortunately, you had
Acrimonial back then.
Right. You had Madison. Now, the interesting thing that these were all white men, and most of them were property owners, and what they knew was the nature of each other and how they set up our Constitution,
Yeah.
and to safeguard against each other.
Yeah.
And I tell some of my white friends, when we get to talk about the Constitution, that it's the Constitution. So the Constitution has to change along with us, and it has in many ways. I say because I was just 3/5 of a person, which was okay because we came together to form a union, and you had to give and take on both sides. And Benjamin Franklin, there at the end of the Constitutional Convention, made the statement, paraphrase, that this is not perfect, but I've come to realize in my life that things that I thought was more or less perfect as I got older and got a different perspective. And he said, I beg of you to vote for what we have, in the sense that that you can become a union and you can rectify it as we go along.
Wonderful. What are your community service activities, and what has been the impact of these activities?
Well,
And have they made a difference in your community?
yes, I was at one point on the board of directors of childbirth education. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was the chairman for 2 years. That was back in the 90s, and before that, at one time, I was chairman of the Urban League and vice president of the NAACP. Um, and for a period, I dropped out of doing anything, but a friend, a white friend, enticed me to go on the board of the cathedral gerontology center, it's a nursing home. And it's been the best experience in volunteerism over the last 10 years.
So what city is this in?
In Jacksonville.
In Jacksonville. Okay. All right. So in your relationship with your parents, what influence did they have on your development, your mother, and was education stressed?
My father was an alcoholic, even though he became a college graduate. Never knew my father to live with us. I was raised by my mother. She raised two boys, and in Daytona, and of course Bethune-Cookman is there in Daytona, and she was an alumnus of Bethune-Cookman, and we were always up on campus. She was singing at many different functions even after she finished school, and Mrs. Bethune's last public appearance was at my mama's request at a new school that they had built. Mama was the first grade teacher, and Mama had Miss Bethune to be the dedication speaker. That was in February of 1955, and Miss Bethune died May 18, 1955. So she died almost. Mama never talked to us about grades. My brother and I called, and ironically, we announced in 10th and 11th grade. He was in 11th, I was in 10th, that we wanted to go to Morehouse College, that we wanted to go to the best. And the first time I ever heard my mama say an elitist thing, she told us that she would work herself to the bone if that's where we want to go. We better not flunk out and have to come back to the
That was the challenge that she laid out there.
That
right?
was the challenge, so therefore, me and Mac Bay was the powder in the box. It was no room. There was no room for error.
I bet as you were, going out at night to go to the library to study, you say, "Well,
the reading room,
yeah. Mom told me this. I better get moving. And, I can see you walking across the campus now. So, all right. So, Dr. Brigety, what are the most valuable lessons that your mother taught you about life?
I went through a very tough period, and I really felt like that I had let everybody down, Morehouse College, but more so than that let my mama down. And during that period, I was not the most pleasant person to my mother, but she handled me with unconditional love.
So that's profound, because not all mothers in the world might do that, and so unconditional love is a powerful concept. And
So
you're lucky.
So when my son and I hit a period,
you went back to that and say, well, what
right,
my mom did for me, I better do for my son.
And that's what I did.
Yeah, wonderful. So that shows you how key ideas and key values get passed from generation to generation. And that's really what is so important in the family.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
And Mama, we had a little house. She was very proud of her little house, and all relatives during segregation, they would always come and stay with us
Yeah.
and pass through.
Right. We had the
and
same
that.
thing in my father was president in NAACP, and there's a lot of luminaries that came and stayed at our house, you know.
But I'm talking about these are relatives.
Yeah, yeah, we had relatives too. Yeah, right, right,
People
right.
that became very prominent.
Yeah,
that
yeah,
She
yeah.
knew along the way.
That was typical of black families, especially then, because we couldn't go to accommodation.
The Holiday Inn.
Yeah, those weren't available to us. You know, the segregation was dominant. So
And my mama also. I came home from Morehouse my freshman year at Christmas. I told my mama, now mind you, my mama raised two boys by herself. I said, Mama, I think that I'm gay. Never had no gay experience. Nothing. How that came, well, I know how it came about, but that's not irrelevant. But the way she handled that, it was, I can still remember that if I were gay, she didn't make me feel uncomfortable.
right, she was ready to accept.
Yeah.
It. Yeah.
That feeling lasted for 15 minutes until an old girlfriend called me. Found out I was back in town.
I say, wait a minute, that ain't quite right here. You know?
It was Christmas vacation, and that the next year, it was another challenge with Mama at Christmas. I learned to play the piano so I could accompany
her when she was singing.
Singing.
Yeah, right.
When she had big concerts and big places to go, it was more than enough people
Mm-hmm.
that would go and play. I mean, good pianists and all.
Sure.
But Mama never turned down anybody. These little circles, little churches that you hit the key, you better pull it back up.
Yeah.
And she never.
Right.
But she, for those kind of events, she always had to beg people to go and play
Yeah.
for her. I said, Mama, if you get me a piano, I'll go play for her.
Wow, that's pretty good.
And
That shows you your devotion to your mom, you know?
and I did.
So
We played, and I'm getting to the point you say a valuable lesson that she gave me another. My sophomore year Christmas, having pledged to frat, some of my grades were suffering. I was taking 22 semester hours. And
which was a lot. Yeah.
And pledging.
And pledging. Oh yeah, that's like double duty.
And I don't know why I asked her, but I did. I said, Mama, who's the best accompanist that you had in everything? And, you know, I thought she was gonna say this person or that person. That she said you.
Wow.
And she said it so fast without, there was no thinking.
It wasn't like she was trying to
pacify.
Yeah, right. That was the absolute truth. Yeah.
So you, because you can feel the music with me.
Mm-hmm. I said, wow, yeah, that's deep. So anyway, let me give you the next question here. No, we can get really extended here. So were there any proverbs or quotes that you remember her saying that stuck with you over the years and you maybe repeated to your kids, your son?
No, but proverbs that I picked up.
Okay.
Proverbs 22:4.
All right.
By humility and the fear of the Lord are riches and honor and life.
All right. Very good.
And ironically, my son has one. A 16:7 Proverbs.
Okay.
When a man's ways please the Lord, he maketh even his enemies to be at peace with him. Now, this is very important because my grandmama gave me a Bible in 1955 because I thought maybe I'd be a preacher, but I had a bad stammer, the problem. I couldn't, but she gave me a Bible, and in that Bible, she has certain passages marked off special. Here, read often, this, and what she had written on the top of Proverbs is I didn't see until 10 years ago. I carried the Bible to Africa with me. But it was, I had it rebanned when Reuben, my son, became an ambassador, and he took the oath on that Bible.
And he was ambassador to which country? Or?
He was ambassador to the African Union at that time. And going and doing this, and this Bible has been a part of me since 1955. I had never seen the fact that my grandmama had written on the top of the Proverbs, book of Proverbs.
In your Bible, yeah.
Read often.
Wow. It's powerful.
And at Morehouse, I did go to Reuben Williams for philosophy. I saw my brother really to make a B, and he had the reputation of wanting to flunk science. So I went to Clark for philosophy and religion and existentialism and all that. But we had to write a term paper, and I wrote. But me, I picked my grandmama religion. And the teacher was so impressed with it. I made an A+ on that paper.
That Sam Williams might not have given you.
Right. But number one, I didn't write on existentialism.
Right. You wrote something. You created something.
Oh well, I wrote what I had heard from my grandma.
Exactly.
Who was a very determined person.
Sure. Sure. That was very creative and innovative. So, how did you meet your spouse?
It's a good thing she's not here because she gives a more sanitized version of it now as we grow older, and I don't interrupt her. I let her go with the version that she has. But the version was that I was finally completing my 3rd year of medical school, and I was going to be going in my 4th year. So I was beginning to see some light at the end of the tunnel and all. 2 years before, Dr. Cotman and I, we had gone on a recruiting trip to black colleges, and we had stopped at Howard and got and several boys that we recruited from there came to the medical school. One boy was more of a playboy, should I say. And these kids, these boys, even in 2 or 3 years, they came down with a whole different attitude than what I went to University of Florida with. They were much more free spirit, freestyle, and everything. And one, my wife had met, or some, I don't know how they met, I still don't know to this day, but he had about 5 girls coming in that weekend. And he said, I need y'all to take these girls off my hand. Just leave me with one, whatever. Barbara was the first one there at 5 o'clock. That's the last time she's been on time for anything. And she was and so she was my blind date. And that next week, my fellow students would let me off early at the VA, and I would drive to Tallahassee and get back at 6 o'clock in the morning for rounds and all. Did that week, and so I knew that this is something.
Something serious happening here.
Yeah. And in the meantime, her boyfriend that she was engaged to is still another guy. Now, mind you, Barbara finished college at 20, and she was 21 at the time here teaching. He flew in from Tallahassee to flew in from Miami to Tallahassee because he could see something ain't right here now going on. And we both got to her house at the same time. My future mother-in-law was in the backyard working, and she was a very nonsense type woman. She kept on working, and I told him, well, you go first, you earn your ring or whatever. Came back out in 15 minutes, and that he didn't break his stride. He said, "You're the better man." Yeah.
Huh. Wow, that guy gave up pretty fast.
Well, he said, I don't know what she said to him. And then Barbara came out with red short shorts. And we were married 5 weeks later.
All righty.
52 years.
Way to go, hometown.
52
years later. That's all history. Wow, fantastic. What are the key?
Now she'll give a little different version
story of that whole thing, right?
That is the truth.
Right. What are the key elements of a successful marital relationship?
That is very interesting. It took me a long time. Well, number one, you got to remember, marrying 5 weeks
After meeting someone.
after meeting somebody, having completed your 4th year of medical school, we more or less established a pattern of communicating with money. And over the years, when that changed, there were some rough periods. But I had to learn by my 35th year of marriage that I didn't have to respond to everything.
That's interesting you say that, because that's one of the key lessons that I learned from my father, that sometimes silence is golden. in especially in an argument, you know, and so, you know.
And I had to learn how to stick to the argument, because I had issue with one of her relatives, and I would always, no matter what we were discussing, and I mean, I would bring this person up. And with that, she was shut down. And you're way off from what was the discussion.
Right.
Now, so that was 35 years. It took about 10 years more for me to realize I could be happy or I could be right.
Oh yeah, we were talking about that the other day. There you go. That's what I told my son when he was getting married. I say, yeah, this is one of the keys, man. You can be happy, or you can be right or happy, you know? Yeah, right. And I think that's it's kind of like a generic value that a man in particular should think about, you know?
But see, I didn't have a father.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly, you know.
And my wife didn't have a father, and so it's something. It's with the rough periods. My son in 10th grade, I told him, told Reuben, I didn't have a father. Your mama didn't have a father. A father is something new.
Yeah, something we got to invent.
Yeah.
In a sense. Yeah, right. We got to create what a father should be. Yeah, right. So, what are your major concerns for the world in the 21st century, and what solutions do you propose?
I think this little bug, COVID, is a very interesting little bug. You know, it's RNA and DNA. That's all. So its job is to replicate. Okay, that's it. It's going to change its form and everything that it can. Mankind, we have a mind, and we're letting this little bug outsmart us with no mind, but just with the instinct to replicate. You know, we fight about masks, we fight about vaccine, we fight about this and everything pertaining to this bug. And so I maintain that's why it's been around as long as it has. And I predicted when it started it was only 7 years. I don't know why, biblical or whatever. I don't know. But I'm also mainly worried about climate and climate control. I just don't think that we are taking it serious enough. You know, it may be nothing that we can just uh, do overnight, but we need to start doing something.
Yeah, I mean the world is not unified on the problem and also on working on a solution, and
right.
that is perilous for civilization in a way. Yeah.
Right.
And that's, I would say, when you look at the list, that's on the top of the 21st century challenges for humanity, and we clearly need to collectively really address this in a big, huge way. Number one, taking carbon, you know, and making sure that we go to zero emissions of carbon into the atmosphere, and then we got to also start taking it out of the atmosphere because
Ernie, it's no matter what we do, we need to recognize it's a problem.
yeah, that's the first step.
That's the first.
That's the only way you're going to solve a problem, is to know that there is a problem.
Right.
And the world is not.
And we are so political divided.
Yeah.
That it is people. If one said night, one said day, one said gee, we. If it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But the only I can say is that some of these things took place with the founding fathers also. They just didn't have the internet
Right.
as a problem. But we got to find a way to communicate and live together.
So the next question is, what favorite 5 books that you can, suggest to our audience that were inspiring for you?
Mary McLeod Bethune, a book that was put out. I forgot the author name, but I read it often.
It's a bio.
Yeah.
Okay.
I read about the founding fathers by a guy named Ellison. I read a book by a guy named Bertie Bowman, Bowman. His title of his book is Step by Step. Man from South Carolina also. And of course, Andy Young autobiography. I've read several books lately. Swanee, University of the South. And it was Born to Rebel.
Born to Rebel.
Yeah.
Right. You were saying you read that every couple of years.
Yeah.
Right.
And our classmate, Dr. Shihai, wrote a book, Possibilities.
I know. I got that book. I have it.
I read that 2 or 3 times.
Okay, so last couple of questions. What is your definition of happiness?
Being content.
Okay.
And I've had to come about that more or less in the last 3 years. You know, be content with what you have.
Right. Right.
And example that I will use, my first year in practice, I got a 450 SL Mercedes convertible within the first 6 months of practice. Brown interior, tan interior, kind of maroon car. Beautiful, good. I was operating one morning, had the car about 8 months, and for some reason, I got a burr in my butt that I wanted a gray one. We're talking about a 450 SL.
I know all about the 450 SL.
We're not talking
SELs. Yeah.
We're not talking
That's the
about
top of the line.
Yeah.
Top of the line, you know.
I want a gray one. In between surgeons, I called the Mercedes place. No, doc, we don't have a gray one here. They got back in touch with me. Well, we don't have a gray one, but we've located one in Atlanta, and we can have it here by 4 o'clock. And they did. Now, why wasn't I happy with the first one? Did it come too easy? But I use that as an example, but so much in life that we are blessed with, and we still want something else different, or whatever.
Right.
So
You learned a lesson from that episode. Yeah.
Well, with time.
Yeah.
With time.
You look back on it and say,
time.
yeah, right.
So now, what makes me happy is being content.
There you go. And that's very simple and basic.
Absolutely.
What is your definition of success?
There's no definition of success because failure could be right around the corner. You don't let either one of them get you down.
Look at them both as imposters.
Right.
Thank you very much, Dr. Brigety.
Thank you.
Dr. Reuben Brigety.